Right. Hello, beautiful ladies. It's Jenelle here, and I am going to interview this wonderful creature here on my screen. This is Frances. She's a dear, dear friend, and I'm going to let her explain the magic that she brings to the world. Frances, what do you do?
Oh, thank you for that beautiful welcome, Janelle. Janelle, what I do is I support people who are going through some form of transition and they feel like they're confused or they're stuck and they just don't know what their next steps forward are. So I support people, and it's mostly women, but I'm also supporting men as well, to find their next steps forward. And how I do that is that I have quite a range of different healing modalities. Reiki was one of the first modalities I started practicing back in '99. But since then, I've been gathering a lot of other information and other powerful healing tools to my toolkit. And one of the latest ones, one of the latest ones I am now working a lot with as a foundation for any healing work I do is Chinese face reading. And I don't like to just call it Chinese face reading because it kind of seems a bit confusing. But what I call it is your divine blueprint. And what it is based on is reading the features of your face, because each of your features have a hidden message to them. And I also look at your birth date through the Chinese principles, or the ancient Chinese principles of Chinese medicine, which is 3,000 plus years old. And with this information that I can read in your features and your birth date, we're looking at the patterns of nature, the 5 elements of nature, and they are water, wood, fire, earth, and metal. Now, these 5 elements of nature, the Chinese have recognized and studied and researched over all those years and found that they relate to patterns that we also have in our nature. So nature is part of us and we're part of nature. So we're not exclusive from nature at all. We're very much part of nature. So by watching nature and how the cycles of time with nature, they could also see that it related to us. Mm. And the first therapists in China were face readers. So they'd read the face and diagnose for people's health. And then they would implement tiny little changes like acupuncture needles and place them in certain parts of the body to bring balance back to the body. And we can actually do this with these readings that I do as well. So a person tends to come to me with a question and maybe an emotional issue that they're trying to work with, and then I will take a number of notes, and then I'll also look at their history of their health and what their health situation is at the moment, and then I will go about reading each of the features of that person's face, and then go into looking at their birth date, and then we'll come to an understanding of what changes need to be made to support them as they start making that next step forward, in a
No,
nutshell.
well, that's wonderful. I actually, because we've done a fair bit of training together. So, and I'm just really fascinated. What drew you to face reading?
What drew me to face reading? Well, interestingly enough, I have been searching for a long time about how to learn more about myself. And over the years, I've looked at different personality profiling ways of, astrology, numerology. And then I was also looking at body language, and particularly in how to support me to become more confident, because confidence was an issue that I was really struggling with for many, many years. So and back in 2017, I think it was, 2016, I was looking at some information about body language, which kind of led me to looking at YouTube videos and finding a clairvoyant in America having her face read by a lady called Jean Hayner, who's quite an expert in face reading over there in America. And she also does face reading for the stars, interestingly enough. And she was a close friend of Louise Hay. So I'm sure a lot of people know
I've
Louise
heard,
Hay is.
I've heard her mention
Yeah.
it. Mm.
So So anyway, I got fascinated by that, and I thought, wow, this is just another really, really profound way of me understanding who I am, but also how it could support me to support my clients and help them to understand who they are and develop a sense of self-love. Because I think we're all on this planet at this point of time, and probably since time began, to really discover who we really are on a spirit level, and then fall in love with ourselves, and which will be ultimately relieve depression, have more of an understanding what drives us and why we think the way we do, why we behave the way we do. So this particular way of understanding people, understanding their personality profile, based on what their spirit or their soul intended for them, is one of the most ways that I can support people. Yeah.
Well, I've had a face reading from you. So I'm wondering if we could maybe go over some features so that that anyone out there may get a little tiny bit of an idea of what you do. So I've got a grandson who has got the most incredibly curly hair. So
right. Yeah, curly hair. Fabulous. That's a sign of a person having a great deal of fire in their nature. There's a few different indications of fire in people's features, and we do look at people's hair as well. So your son has what we call a beautiful pattern of fire, and fire in a person's nature is all about wanting to live from the heart, wanting to experience and share a sense of joy. I'm sure that that's what he'll naturally bring across to you, and being a grandmother, we tend to feel that sense of joy just having, a beautiful grandchild. But here's the thing, he naturally has this desire to have more sense of fun. He may get a little bit easily bored. He may flitter from one thing to another, not always staying focused on one thing for very long, seeing something else that would catch his eye and wanting to go over and do that. So it's really important to allow him to have that expression, and not to stop him in his tracks and say, hang on, you got to stay focused on this project for too long, because it will just upset his system. So very much about joy. Wanting to share joy, wanting to feel special, but also wanting to inspire you feeling special as well. Does that make sense for you? Yeah.
Absolutely, and it sounds like him, and it also sounds like my youngest son, who's got curly hair as well. So I'm
yeah.
Now my middle one, Jared, has got this really big forehead. So he's, comes out, it's quite rounded, and there's, it's quite prominent. So what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? That's fabulous. Because when I do face reading, I look at people from profile. So I'll look at them, both sides, look at their ears, and look at the forehead, look at the nose, look at the chin, all the features of the face. So with Jared's forehead, it sounds to me that it's rounded or domed. And being quite broad as well. This tells me that he's a highly creative young man. He's very intuitive. This is the gift he's been given. And they say in Chinese face reading that a rounded or domed forehead talks about having inherited something from your ancestors, or from his ancestors, so to speak. So he may have inherited a gift, or a talent, or a challenge. So it could be that he's inherited this gift of being highly intuitive, and really just having that gut knowing, or that sense of knowing of a person or a place, or an event. Does that kind of relate? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there's always emotions that relate to each of these patterns as well. So with this particular highly creative and highly intuitive nature, the emotions that can come up for him is fear. Now, it's like a deep primal fear, and it can relate to fear of being different to other people, fear of being left out, fear of worst case scenario, when it's kind of playing out really beyond his imagination, which he'll have quite a great imagination. Even the fear of being abandoned can lie at the very core for people when, if this particular pattern goes out of balance. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, well, he's already different because, of course, he's achondroplasic. He's a dwarf, and so he's actually already different. And he's got obsessive compulsive disorder. So fear is really, it's actually at the base of all of that is actually fear. Yeah, but he's incredibly creative, incredibly creative. Yeah, you give him a problem to solve and he can solve it, and in the most amazing ways.
And he'll need flow. So he'll be someone who needs his sense of freedom, won't want to be hemmed in. And so be allowed to flow through life. And how old is he? How old's Jared?
Now he's 23.
23. So maybe even in his early years, and still even throughout his life, he'll need the freedom to want to explore and travel and just experience life in a flowing type of way, because this particular pattern relates to the element of water. So water also runs very deep, and he will be a person that's very emotional and can hide his emotions, so that if somebody was to say a really cutting remark, it would really hurt him, but you may not see that from the outside. It'll be held deeply within. And when he's under stress, if he's in an argument or anything like that, when he closes his eyes, it's important to realise that he's going into overwhelm and people need to back off. So there's just a few things that we can already tell just from one feature there.
I know, that's amazing. Yeah. What about, because a couple of the men in my family have got the widow's peak.
Yeah. Again, this is another feature that relates to this watery nature. This indicates that they have a charisma. It relates to charisma. Having this magnetic presence about them, just naturally feeling, people can kind of feel, oh, what is it about them? What is it? There's some sense of mystery, and it's just a natural charisma which draws people in and have them wondering, what is it about them? I just want to know more about you. So
I've got one of them. I think I've got them too. Or I'm going to own it anyway. I'm going to come now to the feature that I have, that I'm just as a child was horrendously hated, and that's my nose.
Yes.
I just feel like I've got this snout.
Right. Well, your nose, I want you to actually embrace it, because this talks about your power. This is a pattern or feature in the face that relates to metal. Now, metal in nature relates to refinement and beauty, and it also relates to appreciating the quality of everything. And you're a person that will have high standards, have high expectations of yourself, as in, you've got to have it 100% perfect. And even your 100% perfect can equate to somebody else having to put 300% in. So I want you to remind yourself that you can let yourself, let go a little bit and not have to perform or do things as highly as you'd like to. That means, so being a little bit of a perfectionist, really appreciating the value of your work, about what you do, what you give out into the world. It also talks about you being highly sensitive. So you are a person that naturally needs a sense of space around you, because if you're in a room and there was too much around you, too much clutter, that would actually impact your system. And create anxiety is the particular emotion that can relate to this particular pattern, but it also grief is the other emotion, meaning that if you were to lose something that was of real value to you, and this can be something that you value as in materialistically, but also somebody, if you lose somebody, it can take you so much longer to go through that grieving process. You will need longer than anybody else that doesn't have this particular pattern. You will need to allow yourself months, weeks, months, years, and sometimes it can take you a lifetime to get over a loss. So I want you to really appreciate your nose, because your nose tells me that you're always going to do the best you can, and you won't finish something until it's perfect. Does that relate?
Absolutely. And I can really get that, because I just had a period where I actually moved away from a friend. And I know that she couldn't understand why there was so much emotion around it for me. And it was because that's in my nature. I actually feel very deeply, and I grieved. I grieved that parting was occurring. I actually grieved my way through that. Feel fine about it now, but it actually was a process for me to actually move through it and move on. So yeah, it absolutely.
And also, what I want to mention about your nose, it can also be about, how you go about things, and whatever you do will be with a natural care and compassion for others too. So because you've got a nice fleshy type of nose, so whatever you do and about the quality of work you do, it's always going to be with that care and compassionate side of you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that bit about me.
Yeah, absolutely. That is you. Yeah.
And the other bit that I'm going to raise, because I can't remember this from even when we were talking, is that, like we get wrinkles, and
Yes.
there's one right here.
Right there in the middle of your chin.
Yeah, right in the middle of my chin across here. And I can't remember what that was. But
Well,
maybe we can talk about wrinkles.
Yeah, let's talk about wrinkles. Anything that goes in the face, we can talk about diminishing the quality of something, or having it's not diminishing, but it kind of indicates that there's been something going on, or something that can come up in the future. Any lines that go across the middle section of the face can talk about a break with the past. For instance, I've got a little line that comes across there, the bridge of the nose. And that relates to, if we were to break our face up into ages, it's like if I was to give you a picture of a face with all the numbers relating to the ages, because we have a whole blueprint of the years of our life on our face. So across here can indicate a break with the past as you enter the decade of your 40s, because the nose represents your 40s. So your 40s might have been quite a powerful time for you. And also it can be powerful in that a lot of great stuff happened, but you can also talk about a lot of, lessons learned as well, challenging. But the line that can come, and it needs to be a kind of straight line just across there in the middle of the chin, is around 63. And so that can talk about a break with the past. So that can mean that you may decide to move house, for instance, or there may be some kind of change in the work you do. Just means that there'll be some form of break with the past to the way you're doing or how you're living at the moment. And you won't know until that comes, but yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So what would happen, like, if we were to take like Botox and things like that? We've got a lot of women who actually change their face today. What happens when you're doing that?
We're naturally going to get wrinkles. In Chinese medicine, they say embrace your wrinkles, because they tell you that you've been experiencing certain life experiences, and you're learning the wisdom. You're learning through the growth of those experiences as you navigate your life. And certain wrinkles in certain areas are really good. So we're actually, women in Western society get a little bit stressed about lines that we gather right at the corners of our eyes, and we call them crow's feet. Now in Chinese medicine, they've got a total different spin on those lines. They call them joy lines, which means when we smile, our mouth turns up and our eyes naturally turn up. And so that just talks about you having genuinely smiled at someone and had a moment of joy, and you've shared sparks of joy with someone. If you were to Botox that area, for instance, it just means that you're taking away that's that sense of joy that you would naturally be experiencing. And they say that people that have Botox their face, it means their face doesn't move as it normally would. The skin's not moving. And so when they do smile, they don't have that same sense of joy that you would naturally feel if those muscles were allowed to just do what they naturally do. And they do say if you continue to Botox, whatever lines you're Botoxing that were there, means those lessons that you've learned, you're kind of getting rid of them again, and you may have to relearn them. So we can actually lose wrinkles once we understand where they come from, just by the awareness of them, and then changing something in our life, and then wrinkles can actually start to diminish. So, but I highly encourage people to embrace their wrinkles. Your face is the map to who you are and your journey through life. And you don't want to diminish the life experiences and the wisdom that you're learning as you're navigating your journey.
Nor do you want to actually have to relearn some lessons, because I'm thinking
Exactly.
of a few of my lessons, and there's no way I would want to have to relearn them. That was hard enough learning them the first time.
Well, I've certainly come to embrace my wrinkles, so yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, after my session with you, I certainly thought, I'm not touching, because I mean, I was feeling, I'm feeling like I'm getting a few here and there, and I was starting to go, oh, I don't know about this one. But after my session with you, I thought, oh, yes, no, I'm just going to love them. And I love the joy lines. I mean, how on earth did somebody come up with crow's feet? But I love the whole idea of joy lines. I really do.
Absolutely. And interestingly enough, people can trust people or relate people to other people more with those joy lines. And it's not a conscious thing, it's a subconscious thing. But we can decide whether we like a person or not like a person within seconds, not even less than in a second. And if we were to kind of get rid of those signs of who we really are, then we're not developing trust in other people, or they're not developing trust in us. So embrace the not the crow's feet, but the joy lines. Embrace all of who you are. And as I said, this is what I find the best way of helping people discover who they really are on the inside, and also to be more accepting and have a greater understanding of what their soul's intent was for them in this lifetime.
I know that reading you gave me, because I'm a triple metal. And yes. I know that there has been moments when, because I've come from complete powerlessness, and there's been a lot of moments when I've gone, that is not what I'm here for. And it's actually been something I've really held up for myself to move towards, is actually being fully, authentically me. And that really helped, actually knowing what my soul's intention was here. It really did help a lot.
Yeah. Oh, it's the best way to help discover what your path is, as I would have indicated in your reading through your birth date particularly. And then relieving depression or any other negative emotions that may come up for you because you don't think you're on your path. Well, once you come back to your reading, you come back to, hang on a minute, I'm off my path, then you'll embrace that. And then when things come up, you'll say, hang on a minute, I'm just going to realign now. I know where I'm going. I know where my sense of power is. I'm just going to keep following that.
So I also would love to touch on the eyebrows.
Yeah, the eyebrows. Yeah, the eyebrows.
Interesting. And I think it's important to touch on them too, because as women, we pluck them and we dye them and we do all sorts of things to them. So I think it's really a useful thing to know what our eyebrows say.
Our eyebrows can talk about a pattern that relates to wood. Now, if you would imagine a little sprout in the ground growing and comes up out of the ground and grows to become a tree. And all it wants to do is grow and grow and to transform, and it's all about growth. This particular pattern can talk about a person's vision, their vision for the future, about setting a goal and putting the steps in place to actually achieve that goal. Now, if the stronger your eyebrows, the more the stronger your vision is, the more confident you are in achieving that goal. So your eyebrows and the shape of your eyebrows can talk about how you go about that. So if you've got really thick, strong, straight eyebrows, then you're very much a linear thinker. You think in straight lines, and can tend to be argumentative. A person, the stronger their eyebrows, especially if they end up with a unibrow, that's the one thing the Chinese would suggest. If you're going to change anything on your face, you might take a few of the hairs out between if you have a unibrow, because this talks about you maybe being a bit more angry or aggressive in the way you approach things, because anger is the actual emotion that relates to the eyebrows. So, but what this anger is, because there's all different types of anger, this particular anger is like short, quick, and over in a hurry. It's like that thunderclap and then bang, it's over. But what it is, it's like a rocket booster that drives you forward. So it creates that sense of drive to have that vision, set that goal, and move towards achieving it. So we would suggest that women particularly don't pluck their eyebrows. Back in the 60s, 70s, I think the 70s, I did pluck my eyebrows, and they never really grew back very thick, but they weren't anyway. But anybody that has thin eyebrows, for instance, they would suggest colouring them in a little bit with makeup, or growing them if they can, just to develop more of that healthy confidence and that vision and that drive. And you've got beautiful eyebrows there. That
I've actually been growing them out. I haven't been having them plucked or waxed for a while now, because I've been growing them, and then I'll go and get somebody to do them so that they're nice and thickish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got a lovely curve and roundedness to them that talks about, again, having a really doing whatever you're doing with kindness and nurturing support for other people.
Yeah, that's my work in the world.
It is. Yeah, you're on track.
Yeah. So, just to cap off, how long does a reading take?
It takes a good 90 minutes, and we need this 90 minutes to look at the issue that we want to focus the reading on, because we always like to have a focus. And then, as I said, I read the features of the face. I read to each feature: the ears, the forehead, the hair, the eyebrows, the eyes, even any of the lines that I might see on the face, even moles on the face talk about, more power to a particular feature. So that takes a while, and then I look at the birth date, and then we marry all that information together, and then we also look at any possible cures that we might want to implement like tiny little acupuncture needles, but more in line with what colour might might be best for you to wear for the next few months, or what foods you might be best to eat. So good 90 minutes, and then what people get is also a recording of their reading, because this is a reading for life. This is not just like a clairvoyant reading, kind of predicting what's going to happen over the next year or the next months. This is a prediction, not a prediction. This is a reading of who you are on the inside, what you're here to experience in life through certain core challenges, what emotion you're predisposed to having emotionally as you would have had as a child, but also through life. We tend to resort back to our child-like emotion. And also, and then you also get a recording of the energy that's going to be affecting you during this particular year. Because everything is energy, and of course we're reading your energy based on these features and also your birthday. So good 90-minute reading, yeah, definitely.
Okay, and then for any wonderful souls who would like you to give them a reading, what's your way to, or how do they best contact you?
Probably through my my website. So that's healingvibrations.com.au. And there's a contact details there. And if people go to my website, I do have a page dedicated to your divine blueprint that talks about what this reading is really about. So I'd love to hear from anybody that might be even interested or curious about what this reading's all about. So there's not many face readers out in the world, and there's particularly not many people that marry both the information of your face and your birth date, because that gives you the whole picture to who you are.
I know, I found it absolutely fascinating. And thank you, my dear friend.
Thank you very much. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks, Jenelle.
Okay. Bye.
Bye for now.